The wind cut sharply through the evening air as Daniel hurried down the sidewalk, one hand balancing grocery bags while the other held tightly onto his daughter's small fingers. His mind was on dinner, bedtime routines, and the endless list of things a single dad never stops juggling. But as they passed the bus stop, he slowed. Standing there, almost blending into the grayness of the evening, was a young woman in uniform. A soldier. Her heavy duffel bag rested at her boots, her posture stiff, but her eyes looked worn, like someone who had carried far too much for far too long. Daniel glanced at her hands, trembling slightly in the cold, and something inside him shifted. He didn't know her story, didn't need to. What he did know was the look of someone who had no place to go. His daughter tugged at him, curious, but Daniel had already made up his mind. He stepped closer, his voice steady but kind. "You're coming with me," he said, not as a question but as a certainty. The soldier blinked in surprise, caught off guard by the sudden invitation. For a moment, she opened her mouth to protest, but the warmth in his tone and the innocence in the little girl's wide eyes softened her resistance. In that instant, the bus stop no longer seemed like the only option. Something in his words carried not just kindness, but an unspoken promise. Tonight, she wouldn't be alone. The soldier hesitated, her fingers tightening around the strap of her duffel bag as if it were the only anchor she had. She gave a polite shake of her head, murmuring that she was fine, that the bus would be along soon. But Daniel could see through it, the way her shoulders sagged, the weariness etched into her face. He knew what it felt like to insist you didn't need help when deep down, you wished someone would offer anyway. His daughter, still holding his hand, looked up at the woman with innocent eyes and said softly, "Do you want to come home for dinner with us?" The child's voice, pure and unquestioning, seemed to slice through the soldier's guardedness in a way Daniel's words couldn't. For a moment, the soldier's lips curved into the faintest of smiles, but then she glanced away, embarrassed. "I don't want to intrude," she said. Daniel shook his head, adjusting the groceries in his arms. "You wouldn't be. Nobody should be standing out here alone tonight. Come on." There was a steadiness in his tone, the kind of quiet conviction that left no room for doubt. The soldier shifted uneasily, torn between pride and need. Finally, with a sigh that carried more weight than words, she nodded. As they started walking, the little girl skipped happily beside her, already chatting about the food waiting at home. For the first time in a long while, the soldier felt the edges of her loneliness soften. The house was modest, its walls carrying the lived-in warmth of a place where love had learned to fill the gaps left by struggle. Daniel set the groceries down, his daughter running ahead to chatter excitedly about her favorite toys. The soldier stepped inside cautiously, as if unsure she belonged there, her boots hesitating on the worn rug by the door. The air smelled faintly of home cooking and laundry detergent, ordinary things, but to her, they felt almost extraordinary. At the small kitchen table, they shared a simple meal, pasta, bread, and a little salad. Nothing fancy, yet it was offered with a generosity that made it feel like a feast. At first, the soldier ate quietly, answering Daniel's gentle questions with short, polite replies. But as his daughter's laughter filled the room and Daniel listened without pressing too hard, the silence slowly gave way to conversation. She revealed she had just returned from deployment, still adjusting to civilian life. Her family lived states away, and with no close friends nearby, she had planned to spend the night in a cheap motel before reporting back to her base. Saying it out loud, she realized how hollow it sounded. Daniel didn't try to fill the silence with platitudes, he just nodded, his eyes full of understanding. His daughter leaned across the table, grinning, and said, "You're like a superhero." The soldier chuckled, a sound that surprised even her. For the first time in a long while, dinner felt like more than food, it felt like belonging. As the evening stretched on, the tension in the soldier's posture slowly melted away. What began as polite conversation turned into real laughter, the kind that rises unexpectedly and lingers in the air. Daniel watched her lean back in her chair, her face softer now, her eyes no longer fixed on the ground. His daughter, curled up beside her on the couch with a blanket, showed off drawings and asked questions about what it was like to be a real hero. The soldier smiled at the child's awe, though her voice trembled when she admitted, "Sometimes, I don't feel much like a hero." Daniel leaned forward, his tone quiet but steady. "Heroes don't always feel like heroes. But my daughter's right, you are one. The soldier blinked, swallowing hard, and looked away, as though she wasn't used to hearing those words without ceremony or distance. The warmth of the room contrasted sharply with the months she had spent in deserts, tents, and barracks, surrounded by uncertainty and duty. Here, in this small living room with mismatched furniture, she felt something she hadn't realized she was missing: the closeness of family, the safety of being seen as more than just a uniform. A silence hung for a moment, not uncomfortable but deep, carrying unspoken truths. She finally whispered, almost to herself, "I haven't felt at home in a long time." Daniel glanced at his daughter, now dozing lightly, and replied softly, "Then tonight, this is your home." And for her, it truly was. Morning light slipped gently through the curtains, painting the room in soft gold. The soldier stood by the door, her duffel bag hoisted onto her shoulder once again. Daniel's daughter clung to her leg, not wanting her new friend to leave. The soldier crouched down, hugging the little girl tightly, her eyes glistening. "Thank you for letting me borrow your family," she whispered. The child, in her innocent way, replied, "You can come back anytime." That simple promise broke through the soldier's practiced composure, and she had to blink away the tears. When she turned to Daniel, her voice caught in her throat. "I don't even know how to thank you," she said. He shook his head, giving her a reassuring smile. "You don't have to. Just keep doing what you do. That's thanks enough." For a moment, they stood there in silence, the weight of unspoken gratitude hanging heavy in the air. Finally, she stepped forward and hugged him, tightly, like someone who had been holding back for too long. With quiet conviction, she whispered, "Last night, you reminded me what I'm fighting for. Not flags or orders, but this. Families. Kindness. Home." Daniel watched her walk down the street, his daughter waving wildly from the doorway. The house felt a little emptier, but also fuller in a way he couldn't explain. He realized that sometimes, the greatest gift you can give another person isn't money or shelter, it's belonging. And in giving it, he had received it too.